Thank you, Manny. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it because you're one of my biggest fans that I work with. And I say that just because you've listened to the most episodes, at least from what I can gather from all my friends. So I appreciate the support.
Absolutely, man.
And also, I know that you wanted to talk about some things that are almost like not even contrary to what I talk about, but just like another perspective to what I talk about in regards to like drug usage or, you know, for me, it's mainly psychedelics, but other types of drugs and all that. So I'd love to get into that with you.
Yeah.
But first, give like a quick little introduction of who you are.
So my name is Manny. I guess I always start with saying that I love baseball. Mm-hmm. I love playing it, so that's like one of my passion points. If I can watch baseball all day, I'll do it at the game, not on TV.
Of course.
And I'm always about camaraderie, so I love hanging out with friends, whether it is we're doing something, we're not doing something. And I have aspirations of one day becoming a lawyer, whether that is like next year or down the line. Mm-hmm. But that's something that I've been focusing on. So
that's awesome. So what specifically about law are you most interested in? And then maybe like what kind of law?
I'm interested in like helping others, like people that cannot afford lawyers.
Mm-hmm. It's like pro bono stuff and like public defender, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. However, I do believe in taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. And I believe that my first few years in law would be working corporate law, whether that is patent law or any law that has to do with corporate.
Mm-hmm. That's where the money's at.
Yeah, and
gotta pay off that debt.
Yeah, take care of that. And once I'm in a stable place where I can say, all right, now let me help everybody. Let me save the world, knowing that I don't fall into, hey, Manny, I'm going to give you this amount of money if you drop this case. It's like, well, I'm not interested in that money. I'm interested in serving justice.
Yeah, exactly. And that, to me, the immediate metaphor that I think of is like on an airplane where they're like, put the oxygen mask on you first before you try putting it on the person next to you. And it's because if you don't help yourself, then you're going to drown too, you know?
You can't help others,
Yeah, you can't help other people, you know? Like you try to go save a drowning person, you end up both drowning, you know? And that's where like coming in equipped and coming in kind of already set. And like you said, if financially you're already set, you can't be bribed.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be bought, and then you're more likely to do the right thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of lawyers out there doing really good work. Mm-hmm. But I truly believe in like, you know, my parents sacrificed a lot for me to be in the position that I'm in right now, that I almost feel that I will let them down if I don't take care of myself first.
Totally. Yeah. And you feel like this is a desire for you, though, not just like, oh, my parents want me to. You're like, no, I want this, but also my parents would be proud of it, too.
Yeah,
it's like
man.
a double whammy.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's true. Like you want to, and that's kind of like the concept of like everybody wins. And one of my buddies, we always clown him for saying everybody wins to him. Anytime he'll come up with a scenario that works great for him, and it'll also work great for you too. But you know, it definitely works great for him every time. But there is value in that. You know, you figure something out where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna win a little bit here, but also the people around me will win too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a good equation to kind of live your life by.
Yeah.
So you want to get into law, you want to help people. What has kind of like put you in that state of mind, whether it's like growing up or a situation that influenced you that really made you like, I actually really care about helping people? Because not everybody's about that.
Yeah. You know? So I am a sociology major and a criminology major. And sociology and criminology kind of like go hand in hand. Like you can't understand one without the other. Mm-hmm. And my professor, Christina, in college, she took me to Cuba. She took me to El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras. And I saw some like really bad things. Not in the sense of like, oh, I saw someone getting killed. No, but poverty. Like people that legit have nothing.
Like systemic poverty.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I'm like, this is not like, I am in a position that I can help others. Mm-hmm. And I feel that it's my obligation to do so. And that is really like what really set that off was we were in El Salvador, and we had to sleep with someone in the house of one of the family.
You had to sleep with someone in the family.
Well, no.
Here's my daughter. Manny, you got to do it for America.
No, we had a family was hosting us.
Sure.
And it was myself.
You had to stay with them.
Yeah, it was a professor, another professor, and I. And for breakfast, they gave us beans, like watery cheese, and this like banana. I can't remember. There's a name for it, but like it's kind of like toasted type of deal.
Like a plantain?
Isn't it? I just know that it's like kind of like,
because like plantains are like bananas, and they're often fried. And like you'll make them as like little chips, little plantain chips.
Yeah. So and
learned that in my Spanish class.
There you go.
Yeah, we used to have Spanish parties, and we would load the chips and the plantains,
dude,
and galletas.
I mean, I feel like I've been very sheltered in the Mexican culture, that I'm like, oh, like sure, like I guess it's good. But when we were in this family having breakfast, they thought that they were serving us an amazing meal. And yeah, it was good, but it's not my idea of an amazing meal, and I'm sure it's not your idea of an amazing meal.
Spoiled as Americans, for sure.
Yeah, man. And like that like just hit me hard. And the professor that was there with me as well, he was also a man, and he did not eat it. He kind of told me like under his breath, he's like, hey, can you finish this for me? And I'm like, I got you. But like I did it not because I was hungry, but I'm like, we don't eat this. That's a big insult for them.
Totally.
That they're giving us everything they have.
And it's not good enough.
And it's not good enough. But and for me, I mean, I love beans, you know, but I like tortillas too.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, you're definitely you got your Mexican culture in there. So.
Yeah, and that really was what like kickstarted of like helping others in need. And you know, I've been very fortunate now with my parents, and I've been given different opportunities that other people have not been given. And it's just about giving back, man. Like it's just be a good human being.
It is. Giving back is one of the most rewarding highs that you can get. You know, that feeling of like knowing you help somebody. And it feels good to help yourself. It does. It's rewarding. But there is like a next level with helping somebody else. Yeah. But you can't really feel it or even make that kind of like thought process until you fixed yourself, you know? And I think that's so important that you learn that. And you got to see it from a perspective where you saw somebody in a position where like they were thinking, this is a great meal. Like they weren't feeling bad about it. You know, they were just thinking like, here, look at what we're offering them. Yeah. Meanwhile, from your perspective, you're like, well, I know that there's better stuff on the other side. Yeah. And so you're like, man, I'm seeing you in this place and you guys are still so grateful for what you have. Yeah. You're like, man, I'd like to be able to give you more. Yeah. 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 And it, you know, it's more about opportunity than it is like, oh, here's money, fix your life. Like that's a Band-Aid, right? Like it doesn't really that doesn't solve the problem. We still need fulfillment. Yeah. We still need like a purpose in life. And if you can give somebody an opportunity to find their purpose while also being able to sustain themselves, like then that's like the true key right there, you know? You're giving somebody a real opportunity to make their lives better while also giving them a chance to develop those skills themselves. Yeah. So that they are independent and self-sustainable. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So one of those things that you had mentioned prior to us recording this podcast was you saw in other countries different ways that they handle different laws, and you specifically were talking about criminology and wanting to get into being a lawyer. So what are some laws that you saw overseas or across the continents that really stuck out to you as like, oh man, either they do this better or they do this worse than America? I think for me it was the iron fist. They call it mano dura in Spanish, but it's the iron fist in El Salvador. And it's very common among Latin American countries where they are just saying, this is against the law and that's it. And if you break it, there will be deep consequences for it. And one of the laws that they had in El Salvador in place, and I'm not too sure if they still have it, but I think there's some parts of it that are still around, were that they would send soldiers out to control the streets, to kind of like outgun the gangs. And That's scary.
Right. And like, as a, like a policeman, like cops are trained to de-escalate things. Like shots are the last form of resort in most cases.
It should be.
Yeah. But as a soldier, like you're trained to be at war. Like you're trained, like any sudden movement, you're like, who's there? Like, let's shoot it. And it could be just like a mom walking by. So like those type of laws are just laws that I'm like, oh, this is not working. Like a lot of people are dying because of this. Because
of these laws. Yeah. We like to overpunish.
Yeah.
We do.
It's sad.
And if anything, we're not going to really talk because I know you don't watch Game of Thrones. But if anything, it just reminds me of that because like in Game of Thrones, it's like, yo, you fuck up in a certain way, the penalty's literally death. They'll cut your head off.
Yeah.
And that's how it used to be.
Yeah.
And we have since evolved a lot around the world globally. But there are still countries that maybe still have that policy for certain crimes.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't necessarily fit, the crime.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to be on your podcast, I love your hot takes. I love when you're like, I think everyone should do this. I think one of the things that you said in Daniel's podcast was, I think only smart people do drugs.
Only smart people should do psychedelics. That's what I said. I said that psychedelics are for smart people.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, I was on the expressway, man. I kind of like, what? Like, what? But, and not that I agree or disagree with you, but I think as a society, we're running away from having those discussions. We're running away from like, oh, you believe that? I'm just not going to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hang out with you.
We just shut down the conversation.
And that's bad. And, in 2016, I think the University of Chicago sent out a letter to the incoming freshmen saying there's no such thing as safe spaces, or like, we're going to talk about everything, whether it makes you happy or not. And that's the only way you grow. That's the only way you learn.
Yeah. You have to see adversity.
Yeah. And so that's why I love what you're doing. I love when you talk about like these psychedelics things. And like, in a way, I did a little bit of research, and it seems like we never really learned much about psychedelics.
We actually learned a great deal in the 50s and the 60s.
Yes.
And they were all really promising on the psychotherapy front. So psychiatrists who were prescribing these to people were seeing amazing results, and they couldn't believe it. And it was like, these were like miracle drugs in terms of the way that they're able to help people deal with their PTSD or their trauma, or open up about things that they otherwise wouldn't talk about in a normal therapy session. But then Nixon made the sweeping Psychedelic Act of 1972 or whatever, and he made them all illegal, and it was because he wanted to arrest hippies and blacks. Literally quoted, like you can read that quote. It was recorded on tape of him saying that he wanted to stop. It was like the Jews, the hippies, and the blacks, and it was because they were protesting his war that he didn't want people protesting.
Tough. That is so tough.
Yeah, so he made it super illegal for the wrong reasons. If you want to argue it's a public health thing, there are arguments to be made because, like any tool, they're not perfectly harmless. But at the same time, they're definitely not Schedule I substances. I mean, those are just like, that's just a horrible classification, because that basically means not only are we saying it's super illegal, we're also saying we're not really going to ever study this either, because they have no proven medical benefit, even though it's been proven otherwise.
And you have to admit that, like, with time, research gets better. Like, just point blank, research gets better.
Totally.
So the research that was done,
and the technology, all that.
Yeah, and the research that was done in the 1950s, 60s, like, what more could we found out if we kept doing it?
If we kept doing it,
right?
You think about that, and something that Michael Pollan talks about in his book is that it's unprecedented in any field of science that we would see promising results and halt all of it for 50 years. It's unprecedented.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're finally getting back on track, Denver just decriminalized mushrooms.
Yeah, I saw crazy. That. Oakland is on this way, I believe.
Oakland potentially, yeah. So we have some things moving in that direction. MDMA is the closest out of all the drugs, although I don't consider MDMA a psychedelic. It's like a pseudo psychedelic almost, and that is probably the closest to being greenlit because of its associations with PTSD with veterans. But all of them, they all have genuine therapeutic usage, and there's a lot of propaganda around it that have demonized these substances. And so that's kind of like where I find my role in this is to show like, hey, I'm a reasonable person. I hold a regular job. I make my money. I'm not like some loser. I'm also not so out there that I can't talk to regular people, you know, with vibes and frequencies, man. You know, and it's not that I can't get in on that because I can, and I can talk with those people too. I like to think I can bridge the gap with the average person and the psychedelic user. And I do want to actually clarify that psychedelics are for smart people statement because I said it kind of flippantly. But when I said that, what I meant by that is that a smart person will get the most out of the experience, whereas like a dumb person could take the psychedelic and have a good time, but they might not get the deeper messages that are kind of instilled upon you during the experience about the nature of reality, about the nature of how you live as a person. You know, it still requires a certain level of like introspection and self-analysis that the drug facilitates, but it's still you. You're the one you're in the driver's seat. You're the one who's controlling that experience. And so that's why I was saying psychedelics are for smart people, because it's like the smart people are going to do that stuff and basically become Superman from it. Whereas other people would just do it and just think it's a recreational fun thing to do, which, you know, it can be.
No,
it can be both.
Yeah. I've never done it. Like, I think I have never done weed, believe it or not.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah, I've only done like I drink beer every once in a while. My go-to is usually like tequila. But even then, I don't like to get.
You don't go excessive.
Yeah. And that's why when I first met you and I started, you know, we started getting to know each other and you told me about the podcast and I started listening and I'm like, I'm really interested in this, but not because I want to do it, but more because I want to be more educated on it.
Sure.
And sometimes you bring up drugs and I gotta admit to you, I Googled it.
Yeah. Like DMT or.
Yeah. And I was just like, what is this? Like, oh, okay, cool. And then I just move on. Right. But I feel that I'm learning, and whether it is the field that I'm interested or not, I think that it helps me understand like other people that are doing it, like
where they're coming from.
So I really enjoy that.
I'm glad
about the podcast.
I'm glad, and that's one of my goals. Is like I'm trying to reach people who aren't just doing them. I also want to give an outlet for people who are doing them but don't know what they're doing. Yeah, you know, because I think unless you're the experienced psychonaut in your group, like you gotta hope you have some friends that know it better than you. Yeah, because I read a book before I ever did a psychedelic. Oh, really? I read an entire book on how to trip and how to get the most out of an acid experience. And then when I did that and I did the acid experience, I felt equipped somewhat for an experience that otherwise I'd never had before. Yeah. And luckily the setting I was in was perfect for my first trip. So that kind of then introduced me to the headspace while being in a safe environment and having certain knowledge in my head of like, well, I don't know what this is going to be, but I was told that if I just move in another room, then that can help. And, you know, all these like little things. And so I'm hoping that with my podcast, I give people a chance to listen to our experiences, to learn from our mistakes, and to hopefully avoid making those mistakes in the first place. Man. Yeah, that's the goal. I want harm reduction. Yeah. And I recorded a podcast, which at the moment I released this one is already out. And I recorded that all about psychedelic safety and all about, you know, because I do feel like I talk about it enough that I want to make sure people understand how seriously I take the safety part of it. Yeah.
No, and I think this is very important, right? And especially when you are in a setting where you have been, you know, you've read the book, you're like, all right, like I read everything I need to know about this. Now I just got to do it. Right. And there are people out there that could do the same thing and then just shook. They're like, what? Yeah. Like, and I always compare it where like when you're trying something new, you can read everything about it, but it's just like swimming. You can read everything about swimming, but you don't know how hard it is
until you swim.
Until you swim, you're like, what? Like what? Like you're using your entire body. So that's the one episode I have not listened to, but I will listen to it soon about the safety.
Yeah, that one's I'm gonna be dropping that as at the time we're recording this. I'm gonna be dropping that in 2 days.
All right, cool.
So I recorded it. Yeah, I recorded it.
That's why I'm like, I don't think you have. I'm like, did I miss it?
I have mentioned safety and psychedelics, and I think that might even be in the title of one of my podcasts, but it definitely wasn't the whole thing. So it's like that was just a part of an episode. It was a solo episode I did, and I've mentioned safety multiple times on all these podcasts. So I'm always like clear about that. I know that anytime you take me out of context, you could just pretend like I'm just like glorifying the shit. But if you actually look at the larger context of my whole podcast, you'll see that I always talk about how seriously I take them, that I take them. For me, it's a sacred ritualistic thing.
And you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of guns.
Yeah.
If you meet someone, like I have some buddies that are like very like pro gun. They go to a shooting range and they don't have to, but they just love guns that much. But they don't mess around when it comes to safety of guns. They're like, it's not a toy. Like, this is serious.
Yeah.
And I'm always surprised by that. I'm like, people have such bad understanding of what these things are that they go with whatever people tell them to go with. Like, you know, if you see someone with tattoos, oh, that's a bad person. Or if you like see someone smoking pot outside, oh, that's a bad person.
Oh, he's probably a loser.
Yeah,
he's a loser, like, total loser.
And it's like, how can you make that assumption about this person? Like, he's not doing anything wrong, you know? Like,
yeah, he's just standing there.
Yeah,
but he's got tattoos on, so he looks sketchy. Yeah.
Or like smoking pot. I'm like, okay, like it bothers you, so walk across the other street. You know, like be smart. Like if you don't want to be associated, you don't want to be seen around this individual, just walk across the street. But yeah, I'm always surprised by that. Like just people they always overreact. They let their emotions get the best of them when it comes to tough topics like guns, psychedelics, type of deal.
And it's because in our systems, school, business, whatever, everyone's afraid of getting sued. So they err on the side of like, how do I not get sued? Yeah. No, for real. And so then they're overly harsh. So then like in school, we have zero tolerance policies, which are insane. Somebody assaults, one student assaults another student. The student who fought back is also in trouble, even though the other student assaulted them.
That's tough.
That's insane. And then you have other things like in like a job or a business or something like that. They need to protect workers, and that's fair. You do want to protect workers. You definitely don't want sexual harassment. You don't want any of those things, like 100% with that. But then there are some rules that are just like insane because of those same type of things that they just go a little too far on the rule. Yeah.
And that like makes me kind of brings up back to El Salvador, right? Like the Iron Fist rule. We make as a society a lot of decisions, a lot of laws based on emotion. Rather than facts. And we are humans, so we have emotions and whatnot, but I really wish we use facts more. Like we base this on facts. We're like, hey, I think there are like universal rules that everyone agrees with, such as like, you shouldn't drive drunk because you put the safety of others in jeopardy. Like,
find somebody who disagrees with that.
No one. But I think everyone agrees, like, no one should drive drunk. Like, just point blank.
People do it anyway.
Yeah.
But they know it's wrong when they're doing it. It's not like they think, oh, I'm just doing the right thing here. Like, they're usually like, I can make it home. It's only a mile.
Yeah. And when I was in Australia, like, in March, I asked my buddy out there, I'm like, so, what, like, you know, what happens if you get catch driving drunk? And they're like, well, I'm not too sure. I think the penalty is, like, 3 months suspension or something, and like,
of your license,
and then you're on probation, and that's it, and like you pay a fine. And I'm like, what? Like in Illinois, that's $10,000 down the drain. Plus, I think you lose your license for a year. And they're like, well, that's dumb because you need your license to get to work.
Yeah.
Right? Like
no, 100%.
Like we have laws that purposely put people in bad positions.
To then go break the law more.
Yeah, and it's just, I'm just like,
Gary talked about that on the podcast. He talked about how he had to just keep burning money because he had to keep driving without the license because he had to get somewhere. You know? And it's like, you're going to take away somebody's form of transportation and then not give them an option to get out of it. Or like to spend that same amount of money on like an Uber. It's like, why did I buy the car then? You know? Like you get to that point where it's like, I can't even do that. So what are you supposed to do? We're putting people in situations. Basically asking them to break more laws because of one mistake that they made, and then we like compound it.
And
world's largest penal colony.
I'm also like, you know, we are like very like, we have to punish you or else we have to set an example of you. And I get it. Like some things do call for that, but some mistakes that just don't call for that. And for an example, would be like if you get caught, like as a teenager drinking beer, like that can be a big thing in your college application.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that was one night that you made a mistake.
And your brain's not fully developed.
Yeah. And you gave into like peer pressure. You gave into like that person you really liked. And that person was like, hey, have a beer. And you're like, well, I like you, so I'm going to do it. Like just different things. But then we punish that individual forever. That's tough, man.
Especially, like, I think any harsh laws on children growing up, it's just too harsh. And obviously, you have exceptions to that, and that's the key, is that they should be exceptions. But, like, exceptions being, like, a teenager kills their parents. Okay, well, then, fuck them, right? They kill their parents.
Like that's extreme.
But, like, a teenager who, like you said, who goes out and drinks or gets caught with some pot or something like that, it's like, dude, I mean, we obviously don't want kids just doing it.
Correct.
But we also know that kids are going to do it anyway.
Correct.
So we can't just fuck over their whole life at such a young age and completely alter their path, which maybe, aside from that one mistake that night, might have been like, oh, he was going on to Harvard until he got caught, and then that fucked him out of that application. He got depressed, ended up doing other drugs, or like, you create a negative spiral then from those kind of events, because those are like tentpole events in your life.
And even on that note, I think that, growing up, you're told like mental health is like, oh, not mental health, but like mental illness is not a thing. Like if you cry because you're sad, that's bad. Like you shouldn't cry because you're a guy. Or if you go see a psychiatrist, you're crazy. You're not stable. And it's like, you're right, but they're getting help to get to a stable place. And then it just has like a bad thing attached to them forever. Like, oh, well, you saw a psychiatrist back in 2010. Why did you see a psychiatrist back then? It's like, well, it's none of your business.
Yeah, I was going through some shit.
Well, we can't hire you because we need someone that hasn't had a history of this in the last 10 years. And I'm like, what? Like,
yeah. And that, like, it's funny too, because that's somebody who's seeking help and for an answer.
And we're punishing them.
And we're punishing them. And then on top of it, the people who aren't seeking the help, they're getting rewarded through life by not seeking the help because it's not hurting them. I mean, it's hurting them in other ways, but not in the way of like, oh, I went and saw somebody, so therefore somebody thinks I'm crazy or something.
Yeah. I love that you talk about like meditation. I don't think we do enough as a society. We don't talk about that enough.
No, we don't. Like, it's got such an Eastern culture connotation to it, which I think is really funny, because you don't need to subscribe to any Eastern beliefs to go into meditation. Yeah. You really don't. It really is a mastery of your own mind and an understanding of how your mind works. That's what meditation is. You're observing your mind, you're seeing the patterns, and then you're able to recognize them as they happen. That's like one of the best benefits of it, is that in the moment, the heat of a moment of something, you can notice your brain coming up with these thoughts and these reactions based on the energy or the emotion that you're feeling at the time. And you can almost kill that momentum altogether, because you can just realize, oh, this is all just coming up because I'm, I didn't get enough sleep last night, or like, oh, and you can stop yourself. And it takes a long time to get to that point where you're stopping yourself mid-moment, but you will get better and better at like after the moment, recognizing it faster and faster, of like, oh, that's what that was. And then you eventually stop that behavior, you know? And that's, if anybody wants to reprogram their life, the only way to do it is to reprogram the brain. And so my arguments are meditation is like the most approachable, easy way for somebody to do it. Yeah, man. And then psychedelics is also really good at breaking down those long held beliefs and thought patterns, and it breaks them down to the core. It makes you question the very first neuron firing, Yeah. And so that's where I think, again, the smart people doing them can see that that's where the value is, rather than the dumb people who are like, oh, the ceiling's wavy. Like,
so I don't meditate at all. But I find that I don't meditate because growing up, I would play goalkeeper in soccer. And goalkeeper, you have to have a short-term memory. Like if they score on you, you cannot let that affect you the next time you have to come up with the save. So at a very early age, I learned to let go of things quickly. And when I do find myself that something's bothering me and whatnot, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sleep on it. And in the morning, if I'm still bothered by it, I'm going to do something about it. Whether it is I have to talk to that person, or I want to share with my girlfriend or my friends. I'm like, hey, like, what do you guys think about this? And then just move on from there. And I think right now we're not allowing people to do that as a society. We're like, no, he pushed you. You better go over there and like prove to him that he cannot push you around. Why? Like, what do you gain by that?
Nothing. Yeah, you're just holding on to that energy. And the other thing that actually ties into what you just said is how we're not letting people forget mistakes. So you make a mistake on the internet, that shit's there forever, and now you have to live it down over and over and over again. Did you see the Kevin Hart podcast on Joe Rogan?
I didn't.
Okay.
I saw a snippet of it, I actually.
So one of the things I really liked about it was how he explained how, because he's been apologizing for his previous comments. Yeah. But, like, he clearly has evolved and grown on. Like, this dude's clearly a good guy. Yeah. He's clearly a good dude. He's made mistakes. He's human. But, like, you can tell. He's got good intentions, a good heart.
Yeah.
Good heart, pun intended. But he also just is trying to be a good influence on people. He's trying to put good things out into the world. And so for somebody to keep harping on him on something that he's apologized for numerous times, has clearly moved on from, shows no signs of him still having any of those beliefs.
Right.
And yet we have people hounding him anyway, just because they found it. They dug it up and decided to bring it back up.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane to me. I think, if you want to bring something up that somebody said in the past and they're still showing those behaviors, then bring it up. Yeah. Context is key, right? Then it's like, all right, hey, this is a pattern and you haven't evolved. But if somebody had some controversial views in the past, but they clearly are a different person now, nobody's the same person as they were even yesterday. That's already an illusion. So to think that Kevin Hart somehow represents those ideas that he maybe expressed, several years ago, a decade ago. And then he's clearly a different person with different views now. It's like, why are we bringing that up?
Yeah.
It's not serving anything.
Yeah.
It's just a witch hunt.
It also, family changes a lot, right? When you get married, you have a family, you have kids. You definitely want to be a better person. Like my sister had my niece, and me seeing her have my niece at a young age, she has evolved into an amazing woman, like just amazing woman. And we go out to like dinner every once in a while, her and I, and we just talk about like life. We're not close as much as I would like for us to be close, but just seeing her like evolve into this amazing woman and like just charismatic about everyone, and seeing her care about my little niece is like, yo, like you grew up like from night and day. Like, yeah,
it melts your heart too, because you're just like,
man,
oh, man, it's good to see you evolve.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Kevin Hart, like I think the comments that he made or whatever he did, I think that was before he had a family, wasn't it?
Oh, it definitely was. Yeah, it was definitely before he had a family. But even so, it was like really early on in his comedic career too, where he was just, trying to push buttons, and that was people discover who they are as a comedian over time. Yeah. And you'll try different things for the shock value sometimes to really try to get some cheap laughs out of it, and he's not at that point anymore, right? He's got much better comedy. He's more thoughtful, has better setups, and that just comes with experience and stuff. And he also was really young, Yeah. So it's like you got to think about the age too. Like, think about how many horribly offensive things baby boomers said when they were 20, right? Horribly offensive things. And yet none of it was recorded on the internet so that they can all pretend like they never made a mistake in their life. But we as millennials, we're growing up in the age of the internet. We're making mistakes permanently. And then now we have this like cancel culture, and we're just like, somebody fucks up, all right, they're canceled, delete, unsubscribe, and like that's like so extreme, And
it's tough, man.
And I think
for sure
the importance of a pathway to redemption is huge. We need to have a way to be like, all right, you fucked up, let's make sure you acknowledge it. There should be some sort of social punishment, but not literal punishment, but social punishment of like, hey, people have a right to criticize you for things that you might have said that might be offensive. But then we need to give you a chance to redeem yourself, because if we don't, we're going to end up with more outcasts, suicides, all that stuff from the pressure of the bullying.
And it's funny because I love pushing people's buttons. I love like making people feel uncomfortable.
You like pushing people's buttons?
Yeah,
but it's surprising to me.
I also love to play devil's advocate. And not because of like I like to troll people, but it's more about I want to see how you really feel about this. Mm-hmm. Because if you truly feel about this, we're gonna have a dialogue right now, and you're gonna tell me how you really feel about this.
And if you don't have a stake and you're doing it for vanity, it'll be clear too.
Yeah, and I've learned so much from people. Like, I think, when I went to college, like learning about sociology just like really instilled that in me, like understanding the whole picture, not just, oh, you're Kevin. All right, cool, Kevin. How are you? But like, as I got to know you, you're like, oh, I'm from Florida. I do this podcast. I do that. And now I'm like, I have a good picture in my mind of who you are. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's been pretty accurate, but people just don't like to talk about things that make them uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And it just amazes me, man. Like, the people that are the first to crucify you are also the first to make the mistake.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And the people who aren't looking at themselves are the first ones to be projecting. Because that's something you'll find a lot with people. And it's really funny when you see it. Yeah. Where somebody will project exactly how they are onto you. And you're like, dude, are you talking about me or you? Yeah. Because I'm like, what you're saying doesn't apply to me. Yeah. And I think that takes a certain level of self-awareness. Absolutely. And like, you need to just kind of take a step back and take a step outside of yourself and think, well, I know that this is what I felt and what I saw, but what did that other person think? Yeah. What did they see? Where are they coming from? Because even though I might disagree with people, I usually, and I like to think I'm pretty good at this, is like at least try to figure out where they're coming from. Yeah, at least try to be like, you know what, I disagree with you on this thing, but I understand that from your upbringing and who you are and your personality type, I could see where this would be your point of view. Yeah. And that's fine. We can agree to disagree as long as we feel like we're being honest actors. Yeah, and like, emotional intelligence is very important. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what is it. A lot of people don't have it. Like, they would tell you. I think it's a lack of teaching. I don't think we teach that stuff. It's hard to teach, though. It's hard to teach. But
I felt that I learned my emotional intelligence from my parents. Mm-hmm. From them saying, hey, like, when you do this, make sure that you're not hurting others, but also you're not hurting yourself. Mm-hmm. Or you're not putting yourself in a spot that others can hurt you and whatnot. And to me, I think that's I've had people tell me, I don't want to work with you because you have an accent. And I'm like, cool. I'm like, you're the one here for help. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think? Like, what am I doing this different? Yeah. And like, obviously that makes me feel crappy at times. Mm-hmm. But I kind of learned, I'm like, you know what? Screw you then. Like, you're the one that needs help, not me. Like, I'm smart enough to figure it out. Why can't you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's like, my accent's not stopping me from solving this problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And just people forget about that, man. People forget about, like, hey, Kevin, like, if someone were to come up to you and said, Kevin, your podcast is the worst podcast in the world. Mm-hmm. And you're like, all right, why? Mm-hmm. And they cannot give you a single reason why. Like, then you're not valid. Like,
I don't care.
Yeah, like, right?
Yeah. Like, Yeah, if you want to come at me with some, like, real criticism, I think saying the worst podcast of all time would be, like you already sound not legitimate to me. You already sound like you're just trying to be the ultra hater. Yeah. I would think it would be more realistic for me to take criticism from somebody who's like, hey, I listened to your podcast, and these are the things that I found problematic with it. Yeah. That would be, I would take you more seriously. I would be like, you know what? You got some points there. Not going to change my whole life because of you, because, you can't do that. But maybe I'll adjust some things because of that. I'll think about that. Yeah. And I think that's the difference between people who are self-reflective and introspective and the people who just go through life just assuming that everyone else is the one fucking up.
Yeah, man. I have a joke with my friends, and I'm like, I got it from like Kim Kardashian. The Kardashians, and I was like, I've come to realize that I'm perfect in every way, and it's everyone around me that has problems. But I say, like, jokingly, right?
Yeah. That's some serious lack of self-awareness. Did Kim say that, or which of the Kardashians?
Oh man, it was like one of the husbands.
One of the husbands.
Yeah. Okay. I saw it like on Facebook, and I started using it with some of my friends, and they laugh because they know that it's not true.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
but it's my way of making fun of society because people legit think that there's nothing wrong with them and that the world
is that's the problem.
Yeah,
it's everyone else.
Yeah, and I'm like, what? Like, are you dumb? Like,
you're human.
Yeah,
you make mistakes. You got problems. We all do. It's fine. Yeah, and I think embracing that too. I feel like when you embrace your problems, you embrace what's wrong with you. It allows you to fix those things. Yeah. No one's ever going to be 100% fixed. No. And I think striving for that is sometimes even misguided. You can get too locked up into I need to fix something. There's not always something to fix. Yeah. If you think that there's always something to fix, then you're going to treat it like there's always something to fix. But there are things to work on. There are things to improve that you might fall short on. Yeah. And those things are worth putting your time into, but not to the point where you're so obsessive because you're never going to hit that perfection. Yeah. So that's just, Yeah.
As I'm getting older, I notice that my body doesn't react the same anymore. So, before I was very active and I can eat whatever I wanted and I'll be cool. Mm-hmm. Now I've been gaining weight. And I'm like, all right, cool. I can go to the gym every day, but that's not me. I don't like going to the gym. It's boring to me. Mm-hmm. So one way that I counter that, it's, you know what? I'm going to play soccer. Mm-hmm. I'm going to play volleyball. I'm going to do softball. Things that just keep me active in one way or another.
And they're fun.
Mm-hmm. And I do it with friends. And because going to the gym, I've tried it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I can't do it. Even with the peer pressure, I'm like, you know what?
Even with a lifting buddy, still nothing?
No, man. And I was a cheerleader.
You were a cheerleader?
Yeah, in high school.
What? So you were the base?
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was co-captain as well. I just want to put that out there. No, but Ashley, she was a captain. I jokingly said to her, I need to get ready for baseball. I'm like, and she said, join the cheerleading team. And I'm like, what? No, I can't do that. She's like, why not? I'm like, you know what? I'll try it. Screw it. Mm-hmm. No, what can go wrong? I'll regret it if I don't try it. Mm-hmm. Bro, worst workouts of my life.
Worst workouts of your life, really?
They were tough.
Oh, God.
It was. So our high school was 6 stories tall. Mm-hmm. And I had to do suicides with a girl who was 100 pounds, 120 on my back.
Oh, God. That's
up
a lot.
And down.
That's a lot.
Dude, I was. And I don't think that made me hate working out. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm like, this is hard. I can't believe people do this for fun. You spend 2-3 hours in this.
Yeah.
How? Why?
Yeah.
And some people are like, well, I listen to a book. I do this and I do that. I'm like, there's a lot more things. It doesn't take an hour. It's a lot more than an hour. It's a commitment. Mm-hmm. You have to get ready for the gym. That's probably 20 to 30 minutes.
Sure.
When you come home, you have to shower. Mm-hmm. It's about another 20, 30 minutes. And then as you're coming down, relaxing now, it's all right, I'm tired now, so I'm going to go to bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my problem with the gym. And I love the gym. I grew up playing sports. So I played baseball for 9 years. I played football for 5. I played soccer for 2. So I've always been involved in sports. I even played tennis for a little bit too. And in football specifically, they focus really hard on conditioning. They focus really hard on running a lot, doing tackling drills, lots of endurance stuff because it's a long game and you're doing short sprints every few minutes. You're doing it. And so I learned a lot of discipline from that where I have ran till I've thrown up. I've I've done all this stuff, and I was very much the type, and it's just always been my personality, is to fucking go hard. So when I'm running those sprints and I'm doing those suicides or whatever exercise we end up doing, I would go to the end and I would be one of the people really killing it at the end. Yeah, and that was just something that I don't know why, but it just was instilled in me at a young age. Yeah. So I enjoy the gym, and it's mainly because I enjoy the struggle during the exercises, and I enjoy the feeling afterwards. That feeling of I did something. But I hate how much time I lose going to the gym.
Yeah, man.
I spend, like you said, it takes me 30 minutes round trip there and back to just walk there.
Yeah.
That's not counting the prep of getting dressed and packing the bag and all that. Then I work out, and I work out quick. Okay, I get my workout done. If I'm lifting shoulders or something like that, I can do that all of my muscle groups and everything in about 45 minutes. That's a pretty short workout in the scheme of things, right? I don't take long rest breaks. So it's I go and I'll give myself a minute and a half.
Yeah.
And And then I have to shower, or if I want to hit the sauna, which is something that genuinely you get a lot of benefits, like post-workout benefits from, then the sauna could be 15, 20 minutes. The shower is another 15, 20 minutes. Getting dressed is another 5 to 10.
Yeah.
And then by the time I'm walking out, then I have another 15-minute walk to get back here.
Yeah.
So it's like I lose a lot of time doing that, and I find myself with a 40 hours a week job and this podcast that I got to record and edit and schedule and plan. It's a lot. I end up having to pick one or the other.
But you do it because you enjoy it.
I do it because I enjoy it. And that is what gets me to go to the gym.
How many people do you think out there work out just to work out?
10%. I don't know. 10%, 20% maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Because when I've got to the gym, man, like I think people go for the Instagram.
Some people go for the Instagram. I think some people go for the social aspect too. You know, the people you'll see, especially because, you know, a gym... the act of going to the gym is a habitual thing. Yeah. So you're a creature of habit. You're going to go around the same times. You're going to see around the same people roughly, depending on their schedules. Yeah. And it is kind of reliable in that sense. Yeah. Where like when I used to go to the gym back in Florida, like I really would see the same people because I would go more or less at the same time every time. And so you can kind of make friends that way. And there is a social like watering hole aspect to it. Yeah. But yeah, for the sake of working out, a lot of people, I think, they want results. They want the body. Yeah. They want this. They want that. And that's what gets them to go through. I want those things too. But I really enjoy exerting that energy because I feel like I need to. Yeah. I'm like I'm definitely kind of like an alpha male type person where like I was a sports guy and I have a lot of energy and I'm a physically like fit person. So for me, I like need to. Otherwise, I have too much energy that I waste sitting around. Yeah. And that just ends up being not good for me. It's kind of like how Joe Rogan needs to work out because if he doesn't, he'd be an insane person. I'm not his level, right? Because I can totally like be fine without working out in a day or something. But I think overall it's better for my mental health, and it's something that I've learned because I was injured for a long time and I couldn't work out. Yeah. And I learned how much that made me go crazy mentally. Really? Mm-hmm. The endorphin rush you get from a post-workout, it's big. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had that.
You haven't been working hard enough then, man.
No, man. There was it says goalkeeper. I still had to work out with the team. And then I had my own workout at the end of practice. And we did bear crawls. Dude, I've never thrown up until that day.
Bear crawls. Yeah, that'll do it.
And then I just got home and knocked out.
And then you just went to sleep out like a light.
Yeah, dude. I don't think I showered. I think I just walked in, dropped my bags and laid down, and I'm like, I'm just gonna rest for 2 minutes.
And then you fell asleep.
Like 5 a.m. the next day. I'm like, what?
Yep. No, and some workouts will do that. Some workouts will do that to you. And I find especially if you do the sauna too, you really get that feeling.
So I had a professor, and one of the things that she brought up was like taking 30 minutes to yourself every day. Right? Those 30 minutes, you do whatever you want. Like, don't worry about paying bills. Like, just do whatever you want.
No tasks. Just complete, mind off the problem.
Yeah. Do you... And I find that very meditating. Like, even it's not your traditional, like, I'm just going to sit in silence. But do you find that, like, going to the gym, does it for you? Like, that's your time. Like, that's your time to be...
Sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes. It can be. Not every time, though. Okay. Not every time. Sometimes my me time, and it's tough in today's day and age.
It is,
because sometimes time that should be my me time, I'll end up spending on my phone, or I'll end up spending on YouTube or something. Really? And I hate that, and I hate it, and I want to change it, and it's something that it's like I'm really working on right now. But I do take time to just myself. And a lot of it like will be kicked off by meditation. Yeah. But I also find sometimes like, not that I enjoy doing these things, but sometimes the act of like cleaning dishes or like cleaning the kitchen or the bathroom or something like that, where it's a nice little small satisfying task that is easy to check the box, that's easy to feel good about afterwards. And when doing it without listening to anything, you really can actually kind of like go in. You can go mentally inward, and I think really work through some things. And I actually did that. I did that fairly recently, where I had been taking a pretty decent break from cannabis, and I decided consciously that I wanted to smoke that night. and then go like clean the bathroom and everything. And when I did that, it was like the perfect amount where I smoked just enough to get really introspective. Yeah. And as I did it, I didn't even listen to a podcast or music or anything. I just cleaned the bathroom and I was kind of in my head the whole time, but not in a way of like letting my thoughts control me, you know, because that's why I meditate, so that I can kind of notice that, but more of like, I got to ruminate over things that I think I just needed to really think about deeply without any distractions. And the act of physically wiping something is enough to keep your brain active without getting too off track.
I don't think enough people do that. Like, take time for themselves, whether it is like, hey, I really want to watch The Simpsons tonight. I'm going to do it. And you get home and you don't because you're too tired or you're on your phone, you know? Yeah. And I seen it, like, I see it every day, like at work, where I'm like, you're burnt out. But you're burnt out because you're not taking care of yourself. It's
more than just the job, which brings, you know, jobs bring their own stress level, and whatever your duties are at the job, that's its own thing. But there is this level of like, yo, if you're not getting a break at home, you're definitely not getting it at work. So if you're not giving yourself that time, then it's gonna come out later.
And I don't know, man, that really, like, I wish I could just take someone and be like, yo, go outside and just sit without your phone and enjoy yourself. Like, just don't do anything. But people don't do that.
Well, it's hard because we feel like we always have something we need to do. That's the American culture. The American culture has sold us that any moment you're not being productive, you're wasting time. Which sometimes wasting time is the most productive thing you could do. Because without that, you have no reference point.
I got to tell you, like, looking back at life so far, going to Cuba, I was there for 3 weeks back in 2011. There was no phone, and I made it a purpose to not go on the internet, like, because you could go on the internet, but it was like dial-up.
Super slow.
It was not worth it. Like, you were literally wasting an hour trying to send a message. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna walk around. And a lot of people, like, I think I was the only one out of the group that didn't, 20 of us that did not go on the internet. And the people that, like, they started seeing that I was happier because I wasn't caught up with what was going back home. And what I thought to myself, I'm like, if it's an emergency, the people that need to get a hold of me know how to get a hold of me. Period.
It's true.
And I'm just gonna enjoy myself. And I really like those type of trips where I can just disconnect from the world. And it's not like I'm going MIA or I'm purposely avoiding you. It's just, hey, like,
I need to unplug.
And I wish people did more of that, man. I really do. And I think if people did that, they'll be in a better spot.
100%. Like, I think we need to give more opportunities for people to feel like they can, because Americans leave more hours, and I don't know the exact hours, but leave more hours of vacation on the table than any other country. And then people who don't use their hours have been proven to be worse at their job and to be in a worse psychological place. We need to take steps away from what we're doing.
Did you know that places like Netflix, who don't have limits on vacation, actually have people take less vacation?
Really?
Yeah.
But they use it more strategically, or
they don't use it? No, because you feel guilty because you're like, well, I'm gonna take this week, but is it okay? Like, do I deserve this week?
Yeah.
Whereas we're structured, you know, we're like, oh, I got 2 weeks.
Better use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another place, like,
that is interesting. The psychological effect of that. Yeah. I wonder why that's the case, and I wonder if, you know, because I think with a big team or something like that, you can feel more like the diffusion of responsibility. Yeah. Whereas, like, if you're in a team of 5 people, you know that when you're gone, you're putting extra work on everyone else, and you directly know who those people are. But when you're working in a huge team, it's easy to be like, they'll figure it out.
Yeah. But that astonishes me, man. Like, you have unlimited vacation. You know, I probably would never show up to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would take advantage of unlimited vacation.
Yeah, we think that though, and then we're in that, and we're like, you know what? I'm gonna hold off on this trip for now because we have to get this project done.
And that's fair, and that might change it. I guess in my mind it would be I would just plan more of them, but way ahead of time. So that way they knew when I was taking it. You know, that way they could plan accordingly. Like, hey, you knew 2 months ago I was not going to be here for a week. You know, and that's where I planned. I haven't fully planned the trip yet, but I've at least gotten the time off, and I planned a trip that I want to go to Colorado.
Yeah, in August, you did tell me that about that. I was
talking about it in the break room, and I'm so excited for it because this is going to be like my first trip, really since like moving out of my parents' house, where it really is to go somewhere new. You know, because ever since I've come here, I've always had to like go back to Florida. And I went on a trip with my family to DC, which was cool because Kelly was living in DC at the time, my sister. And it was awesome. It was such a great trip. We got to see some cool stuff. It was a great time with the family, but that's different, you know? It's different than going with friends. So going to Colorado is going to be like a place for me to see a new place I've never seen before. To do it with a bunch of friends. So it's just kind of like a fun, casual thing. To see mountains, which is something I'm like, I really want to see some nature shit.
Yeah, bro. You're going to have a good time.
And the legal weed. All of those things.
Really? Weed?
No. Weed? What?
No, man. I love Colorado. I love the nature crap. Like, all that stuff. I love it.
Yeah, I have to escape the city.
Yeah. And it's not like, I don't do it for Instagram, right? Like, I love,
you do it for yourself.
Yeah, I love going in there. That's always the best thing.
And I like the idea of going in August too, where like I know it's cool to see it in the snow, but no offense, I'm tired of the cold. I want to see it in like nice
absolutely,
weather.
Man. Yeah, absolutely.
And especially if like I want to go like hiking on mountains and stuff. Like I want to be able to do it where the weather's nice and it's just pretty and green and lush. And I can't wait. I can't wait for that because that'll be so big for me to be able to have a nice long like week-long stretch where I can really enjoy it, go explore, hang with some friends, see some shit I've never seen before. I'll feel like I'm finally starting to explore, America.
You know, I told you earlier that I've been given a lot of opportunities that others have not. And one of them has been for travel. I've been to a lot of places, a lot of cool places. And I wish people travel more. Like, it's hands down. I think it'll make them a better individuals overall. Like, you get 100%. To see other cultures and whatnot. Yeah,
it gives you a different context for the human experience.
Yeah, and there's someone that we work with, I won't mention names. They said that they would never leave Chicago because Chicago is the best city in the world. And I'm like, how do you know that?
How else? Where else have you been?
And they're like, I don't need to leave Chicago to know that. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah, that kind of does make sense. Yeah, you got to at least explore some other places first.
Yeah, like at least go somewhere cool. You know, like even if you don't find it to be the best city in the world, like go explore. And I told one of our friends, I told her, I'm like, don't let a guy tell you that you're the most beautiful girl. Especially when he doesn't have a passport.
Because he hasn't seen the world, man. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
No, it's true. It's true. I think, because like I visited New York immediately after moving to Chicago. Like I went to Chicago and I moved in, and then like maybe a month later or so, I made a trip to visit my friend Matt, who at the time was going to NYU Law. And I saw it at the worst time ever. It was like this rain, sleet shit, and it was like 30-something degrees, and it was just terrible. And in the end, Chicago actually had nicer weather that weekend.
I believe that.
Yeah, and so then I was like, damn, I'm like, why did I even fucking leave? But it was a cool experience to see New York, because that was something I'd always wanted to see. So
I do have to say that people get caught up in like, I don't fly Spirit, I don't fly Frontier, and I have to stay at this hotel or else I can't go. And I'm like, why? You know, most of the trips I've taken have been very cheap. Like people are like, how do you do it? I'm like,
because you find deals.
I'm like, I usually go last minute. I figure it out. I stay at like hotels that I know are
What
cheap.
about Airbnb? You ever tried doing that?
I have. I'm not a big fan.
Why not? Just out of curiosity.
The bed.
The bed?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually garbage.
Yeah, most of them are.
Yeah.
We stayed at the, so I love the Hyatt because it's Chicago based.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually try to stay at the Hyatt when I can. This weekend we were in DC and we were in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed at the Hyatt in Cincinnati because it was $100, and I'm like, it's $100. Like you can't really beat it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And then we went to DC and we stayed at Marriott because it was $80. And we actually drove further to get to these hotels than actually staying in the city. And and just the simple reason is that I know the bed. I know what kind of bed they have, and I know that I can sleep on it.
Yeah. And that would be horrible. You go on a trip and you get no sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
you can't enjoy it.
Yeah.
You can't enjoy it if you're tired.
The only time we do Airbnb is when we have a big group, where you can accommodate for 10 people on a trip. Like just gotta.
That's what I was thinking of for the trip to Colorado. As I was thinking, I'm like, I'm probably going to try to get like a decent amount of people to go. And so it's like Airbnb is probably going to... I would like the idea of being able to like Airbnb like a fucking house. Like a dope ass... Like not just an apartment. Like a dope ass house that then a bunch of people are all staying in.
You just have to find the people that are willing to pay the money, man. Because I think that's a downfall of trips. Where like you plan something and you're like, hey, I want to do... You sell this idea. People are like down for it. And you're like, all right, it's going to be $200 everyone. And they're like,
no.
Yeah. I'm just like...
But it's worth it. Like, that's what it's for. Yeah. I'm of the mind that like I'd rather spend money on experiences than things.
I'm with you.
I've spent a lot of money on things in the preparation of getting my podcast off the ground and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of like upfront costs that I've had to forfeit experiences. But now I have enough of these things that I now want to spend my money on experiences.
Yeah, man. If there's one thing that I think you personally would benefit from would be visiting Cuba.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put it out there.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to do like my friends who are like, hey, I go to Mexico. I'm like, oh really? Like where'd you go? And they're like, Cancun. Oh, I stay at the Hilton in Cancun. I'm like, did you leave the resort? No, why would I? Then you didn't go. Yeah, you just went to the beach. But the reason why I say Cuba is very hard on drugs. And it challenges you in ways that you don't think it would. And it's very safe, ironically, because people usually, other developing countries are not safe. Cuba is extremely safe. But it would challenge you because when you arrive, your taxi driver is probably going to be like an engineer. And he's a taxi driver because he makes more money as a taxi driver.
That's weird. How does a taxi driver make more money than an engineer?
Because it's socialism.
Okay.
But it puts you in a very like.
But it's a different kind of socialism. That's not like that Scandinavian socialism. It's more like South American socialism.
I don't know. You have to experience it. I wish I could tell you like this is what it is. And then when you get there, you can read everything about it. And you get there and you're like, this is not what I read, or this is not what I was expecting. And then you come back and it just gets you thinking. Your mind is running 100% the entire time. You're trying to understand something that you just can't understand.
Yeah.
And I compare it. Have you ever read 1984? Try to compare it to that, where like, one day you wake up and you leave your apartment and people are like, oh, the cars are flying. And you're like, what do you mean they're flying? They're on tires. They're like, no, they're flying. And everyone's saying that the cars are flying. And you're like, you know what? But they're not flying. And then you're like, all right, you know what? After like a week of people telling you the cars are flying, you're like, all right, you know what? They are flying. Whatever.
Yeah. 2 + 2 = 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that type of experience where you're like, you get in there and you're like, this is a fake world. Like, this is not a real world.
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend Cuba.
Okay.
And don't stay at the Hotel Nacional, which is their like main hotel, like the hotel where rich people go and stay. Don't stay there.
Go somewhere else. See the la cultura.
Go to Malecon, hang out with people, man. I think you of all my friends would enjoy it the most.
I believe it.
And
I'd like to.
And you speak Spanish.
Un poquito.
And man, like they'll challenge you, dude. And these are some of the most educated people I've ever met. They know their stuff. They know about us. And then you feel dumb because you don't know about as much about them.
Well, that's I mean, every country, I think, and America maybe is even worse at it, but every country really teaches their history really well and then glosses over everybody else's history. That's like usually how most history goes. But America specifically is worse.
Yeah.
We're like, we were amazing and we were the best team ever.
Yeah.
And the Nazis were bad and all this, all these other things. It's like, yeah, I mean, like, those are true, whatever. But also this perspective is probably extremely American. Like we've never fucked up in our whole history. You know?
Like, yeah. Yeah, man.
Got a lot of evidence that proves otherwise when you really look into it.
I was in algebra, and we were having a discussion about great leaders. Mm-hmm. And I said Hitler was a great leader. And everyone just like, and I'm like, I don't believe what he did was right. 100%. What he did was,
you're not saying his ideas were great ideas. You mean the way that he was able to command people to listen to him.
Yeah.
Which is like, the fucked up part is that even somebody with terrible ideas like that still has skills that can manipulate people into doing their bidding, and regardless of how bad they are.
And that's the tough part because, I wish we had more leaders that were great at getting people together behind one idea and actually make things happen. Mm-hmm. And, he like, you have to give it to the guy. Like, he was a great leader in the sense that he was able to bring people together.
Yeah, unfortunately for terrible reasons.
For bad reasons.
Yeah. But it's true because like the politicians we have right now are not leaders. They're followers of policy.
Correct.
They're followers of like, oh, well, what's polling well?
Yeah.
And they're not trying to take a stand, not to get too political, but like Bernie Sanders is one of the only people in the Democratic campaign race that was ahead of the ideas being popular. That he said these ideas decades ago.
Yeah.
And now they're popular. Now all the candidates are saying it because they know that the basis for it. But like he was brave enough to say it before then. Whereas if you look at the records of like Biden, man, he was wrong on every single public policy thing leading up to this moment. Like literally, he was wrong on all of the crime bill. And I don't even want to get into that, but
no, but going back to your comment about like how countries are like, they tell a very biased story of what happened, and I think that's unavoidable. Like you're not gonna.
Of course, the history books are written by the winners.
Yeah. But what helps is if you actually read different perspectives. Mm-hmm. Things that are like I'm reading a book right now on ISIS, a guy who got captured by ISIS, and he was a friend of the individual who got beheaded on YouTube, or like he was a writer.
Okay.
And he talks about like everything that they were going through, and you're like, why are these people doing this? Right, like, and then you start reading the book, and you're like, "Oh wow!" Like, not that it justifies what they were doing, but you see it differently.
Yeah, they have nothing. They're being bombed by another country. Yeah, no, when you see it from the perspective, like, I see why America's creating enemies, like 100%. Yeah, and not that the terrorist reactions are ideal or that they're the right way to do it, but they feel like they have no moves. They feel like they're out of chess moves, and the only thing to do is to act out wild. And unfortunately, we don't help that.
Yeah,
we're perpetuating it.
No, 100%.
I mean, and you can look at examples of American intervention that have almost unanimously always ended in worse for the people we bomb. Like we always end up leaving, like we're gonna bomb them into freedom, guys. Like we drop our nice little freedom bombs, and as soon as they explode, they just those what are those little like popper things? Like they just come out and confetti everywhere.
Yeah.
Like no, dude, we're literally creating destruction, and then we're destabilizing regions, and then we're expecting them to somehow just listen to our puppet leader that we try putting in there.
And that's a lot of what I saw in El Salvador. Mm-hmm. Like with this iron fist idea of like, we're just gonna say this, we're just gonna outlaw all this because it makes sense and it's against the law. Mm-hmm. But you're not looking at the big picture, man.
Exactly. Yeah, and the big picture is the thing that steers the ship.
Yeah.
The big picture is what's in charge of where the wind is blowing for the sails.
Yeah.
And if we're not steering the ship based on that. We're steering it based on just the couple waves we're running into along the way.
Yeah.
That, oh my God, we're going to get lost in the ocean, and we're going to be sinking real fast. And the thing that I want to like stress most when it comes to like political stuff is that I get that for a long time, incrementalism was the way to go, right?
Yeah.
But the world has changed way too quickly for us to be that slow now. We just can't. The world's moving too fast. We can't have these slow ass, big ship, barely turning reactions to things because it's just not helping. No. At this point, we're in such a desperate spot that Donald Trump is president. I mean, that should tell you everything that we need to know about how the country's feeling at the moment. That he was able to convince millions of people to vote for him.
But that's because those millions of people were oppressed for so long. They were ignored for so long. And they said, you know what? You're not paying attention to us, so we're going to make you pay attention.
Exactly. And the funny part is the establishment, Democrats and Republicans, are still not learning the lesson. Like, you can tell that they still, like, so Biden is basically Hillary's campaign 2.0. Yeah. So, like, they haven't learned. They don't realize what made Hillary lose, and they didn't realize what made Bernie popular in the first place, or what made Trump popular. Trump didn't go through with any of the things that he promised. The things he was promising was like, get us out of the wars, let's help the infrastructure, let's do this. Now, he hasn't done any of those things, and in fact, he's done the opposite in a lot of them, where he's gotten us into more interventions. He's also completely defunded certain aspects of our infrastructure bills. So, he's doing the opposite. But his rhetoric and what got him elected was that kind of straight shooter, like, we should fix these things.
I was reading what about like Trump and the voters and whatnot, and back then, if you wanted to get a message out, if you were president, you would have to contact CNN, all the networks, the major networks, to come in and record you saying this message. Now you just go on Twitter.
Yep.
And you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth.
Yep, it's true.
And that's what made him so popular. Because, I mean, who has time to watch the news in today's world? And
especially when you know it's fake news. You know what I mean? Like, especially when you know that it doesn't matter who you're getting it from. Fox News, CNN, NBC.
It's skewed.
It's all skewed to the corporate interest funding them. Yeah. Who do you think is paying their advertising bills? Yeah. We have big defense contractors that will pay NBC, that will pay CNN. And so then they're just not going to run stories on shit that's going to give them bad PR. Yeah. And it's not that the reporters, although I like to think they just hire reporters who just don't question things. Yeah. I really do think they just hire kind of like sycophants almost. Yeah. But aside from who they're hiring, even if they wanted to run a good story, their producer might stop them. The person above that might stop them from running the story. Everything has to run through a filter. And if that filter is run through the same 6 companies that own all the media, well, then, you're not getting a real fair shake. Yeah. And then on top of it, if you've ever noticed, and I like to use Bernie Sanders as the example because he's just got a big name, but this happens to anyone who kind of has counterculture ideas, is that every question that will be framed from any MSNBC, CNN, you name it, it's not just Fox News that's completely shilling for one party. Any question that Bernie Sanders gets on CNN or NBC is coming from a standpoint of like a right-wing talking point or like this, like, so we know that this isn't going to work. Can you tell us why you think it will? And it's immediately like he's got to be on the defensive. Whereas, you have somebody like Joe Biden come on there, they're going to give him softballs because he's for the establishment. And so when you start seeing through that bullshit, and I like to think this past election really showed people that, where you start seeing like, oh, fuck, it's rigged on both sides. Like, obviously, Fox News is just ridiculous, right? Yeah. CNN and MSNBC are ridiculous in a different way, in a way that they seem like they're being fair and they're being palpable. But when you actually break down their interviews and you look at the questions they ask and the framing they're coming from, you realize that they're being completely biased too. Yeah. And so neither one of them are being fair.
Have you read Dark Money?
I have not, but I can imagine what it's about.
You should read that.
Yeah?
It will give you a perspective on how both political sides are working. And obviously the Republicans right now have a lot more money.
Yeah, because they don't care. They're blatantly corrupt.
Yeah.
Democrats try to pretend like they're not.
Yeah, and Obama saw it coming. Like, he saw it coming. He knew that he was going to win his second term. Obviously, you can't be for sure, but he had a pretty good hunch. Yeah. But he knew that he had to raise, like, the Democratic Party had to raise money to win the other election.
Mm-hmm.
And he had all the funding to do that. All the people that are running right now don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad.
Well, and that's where I'd like to see the funding of elections be partially publicly funded. Where I've heard a concept, and I don't remember where I heard this concept, but I really liked the idea. Was that what if we had $1,000 stipend that is part of like your taxes that is set aside for you to be able to donate to whatever campaign you want.
Yeah.
And then that way everyone has this stipend. It's money that can only be used for this purpose. So it's just like, think of it as like almost like a credit that like then goes towards those campaigns. The campaigns then are now funded $1,000 per person of the average person, which otherwise I would never have $1,000 I would donate to a political. I just don't have that kind of money to spend on a political campaign. But if I was given to it and it was like either you spend it or you lose it, then I would spend it every time, and I would spend it on who I wanted. And then it levels the playing field. So you could have millionaires and billionaires giving out all these donations, but 20,000 regular people can now match that donation in one swoop. You know, it just levels the playing field because you're not going to get money out of it.
This is one of your hot takes.
Yeah, it is.
But I can definitely see the challenges with that.
Yeah? Like what?
Not everyone plays on the same field.
Meaning like what?
Well,
in what context?
Can I give $1,000 if I'm Kevin? Yes. What if I have a baby? Can I give? You know, like just things that can be corrupted easily, like.
Well, I mean, you only get it once you can vote. So anybody who's 18 and up.
Okay.
And only you can spend it.
And only you can spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Who administers that? Who decides? Like, who validates that the money goes to where you?
So that's where it would be some sort of like a credit system where the government pays your donation for you.
Yeah.
And you just have to submit some form that then says, this is where I want the money to go.
Yeah.
And that could easily be automated electronically.
Yeah.
I don't think that needs to be like a disaster or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just like the idea of it not actually being cash, that it's literally just like a credit that like you're putting towards, hey, I can donate to one of, and like, let's say it's just a government website that says like, where do you want to put your money? And it says all the candidates that are running, and you just be like, that person in a little radio bubble, click it, submit, and then it puts it in there. And you never had to spend a dime. It never came out of your pocket. The government then pays for that. And that's just part of your taxes. Like, it's just part of what we raise in revenue.
Yeah. I like the idea. I definitely
just from leveling the playing field.
Yeah. There are some crazy takes out there on how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard of ranked choice voting? That's one of my other favorite ones.
I haven't, no.
So basically the way that ranked choice voting works is that you have your top vote and then you rank the other people in there. Then we actually get who the majority of people want. So let's say, Bernie Sanders is the first choice for 20% of the voting population, and he's the second choice for 30%. But then we have like somebody like Biden who's maybe like 10% first choice and like 40% second choice, or something like that, where then it ends up being where it's like, well, if you look at the percentages, Bernie wins because he has a decent amount of first choices, but he's also got a lot of second choices. Yeah. And because of that, you end up getting the person who at least the most people are okay with winning. Yeah. And then that way you don't feel like I'm not wasting a vote on a third party. It makes third parties valid again. And so I'm not wasting a vote on them because maybe I don't make them my first choice. Or if I do make them my first choice, I make my second choice somebody else who's a more safe bet. And then that way no one's feeling like you're taking a risk by voting on something you believe in. Because right now we're voting against what we don't want, and we're not voting for what we do want. Yeah. And that's problematic. That's not even democracy at that point. That's just settling.
It's also, people don't vote in local elections.
No, they don't.
And that's a problem because those are the ones that impact you the most.
The most. Totally.
There's a story I went to a friend who's now the alderman of my ward, and I told him I want to run for alderman. Mm-hmm. This was like fresh out of college, and he laughed, but not in a. He's like, dude, you have some big balls. I'm like, what? He said, I'm the alderman's right-handed man.
You're like, oh.
And he's like, but I love that you didn't give a shit. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I don't believe what he's doing, and I think you're a smart man to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And we became friends from there. And he's ultimate now. But
is he doing a better job than the other guy?
Today was his first day that he got ignored. He
nice. Okay, so he just got it. Okay.
He just got it right now. Today, actually.
That's amazing.
And he's the one that, like, told me about all the money in politics. He's the one that said, do you know how much it took for the alderman was Munoz to win the race? And I'm like, no. He's like, $150,000. He's like, do you think you can raise that money? And I, like, without missing a beat, I said, yeah, like, that's no issue. And he's like, dude, I like you.
Yeah, he's like, you got spunk, kid.
Yeah. And then he brought me onto his associate board. And I could raise money quickly, but not because I had the resources, but I was very creative. Like, let's raffle this. Let's throw this event and raise money, and like everyone works for free, and we donate everything. Mm-hmm. And I left the board because they were not dreaming big enough. Mm-hmm. They were just like, $5,000. I'm like, I can do that in a weekend. Like, I can raise that money because people will donate to good causes. And they're like, nah, I don't think we could. I'm like, all right.
And that is a systematic problem of decades of pessimism that has just completely made us to the point where we don't believe in anything anymore. Yeah. Because the system has shown us time and time again that it doesn't care, no matter how much effort or how much we believe in something. I mean, there was statistics that came out a few years ago where it was like, if public policy was overwhelmingly like the American people all wanted something, if the corporations and the oligarchs didn't want it, it still wasn't passed. Yeah. And then if something that nobody wanted, it's still at a 30% chance of passing. That's insane. There's something that literally universally everyone's like, I hate that idea, never do it. Yeah. Still is a 30% chance of passing because of money influences.
There was I have a buddy, and I think you'll like this story. He wanted to pay off his student loans. Mm-hmm. He had like, I think, 80,000 in them.
Oh, that's a lot. Okay.
He threw a festival. He closed down one street, threw a festival, and he organized like everything. Like, his mom was working like the stand, so someone else was working like the beer stand and all this stuff. And the rule is that you couldn't bring alcohol. You had to buy everything there. Mm-hmm. He raised like $95,000 that night, and he paid off his debt.
How? Wait, how did you get the street though? Don't you need you got to pay some money to get the street? Mm-mm. No, you just have to.
That's a misconception. No, you just have to go in there and
request it.
Request it for what reason and whatnot.
So he paid off his student loans in one night.
One night,
dude. That's amazing. Right? I'm about to throw a festival, guys. All right, guys. Let's get the Cosmic Perspective fan base going. We're throwing a festival. This is to pay off my student loans.
but it's something simple like that, right? Where someone thought outside the box and said, "Can anyone throw a festival?"
That's actually ingenious. I'm legitimately thinking about doing that because I know a lot of people who could provide a lot of services and sell some shit. Not to pay off my student debt, but just to throw a festival. I just think that'd be cool.
And he didn't sell it as like, this is for charity. He's like, this is for me.
Yeah, he said that.
And people, they saw it. They wanted to go out one night.
Mm-hmm. It was a fun thing.
It was a beautiful night.
Yep.
And he got it, dude. I mean, he had to pay a lot of taxes. Mm-hmm. He's like, I can deal with that. He's like, but my loans, I pay that off. He's like,
that's amazing. Yeah, how do you track that kind of thing, like of like where all the money went and how you got it? And...
It's Excel, dude. Like,
yeah, pretty much just literally a big like Excel sheet.
Yeah, like you just, and now with technology, you can like with POS systems.
Yes,
you can
Square. Yeah, it's true. Damn, that's so smart. Yeah. Literally,
I think he only spent like, I think he told me it was around like $12,000.
$12,000, but he raised 95.
Yeah.
So, but like, was it 12,000 up front?
Yeah. But I mean,
so
everyone has credit cards, so
no, for sure. So that's where like, I guess that's where you got to figure out like how you want to front that bill, hoping you'll at least make it back. Which I would imagine something like that. Like, it probably is pretty easy to make it back.
Yeah, he was selling like beer was $1. But he paid I think it was like $12 for 24 packs. So he was making like $12 on that.
Yeah.
The hot dogs were like $2 or $1 or something. Like,
and he just bought a shit ton of them. And,
he was just making money, and he ran out of beer.
He ran out of beer
because people are like, you know, you're out, you're like, beer's $1. Like what? Like Chicago?
Yeah.
So
that's actually really smart.
Yeah. I mean, it was like Bud Light, but Budweiser, like,
no, but still,
that's
still really creative. And like you said, it's more of like the price point is like people will drink whatever the fuck they want for $1. They'll drink it. They don't care. They're like, yeah, I'll have a bunch of these.
It was impressive, man. When he told me that, I'm like, dude, like, you're lying to me. He's like, no, and he and he showed me, like, because they say when you pay off loans, they send you a letter saying like, congrats, you just paid off. Bro, he had the letters. I'm like, wow.
That's amazing. Damn, that's so creative. Yeah. That's so creative. I want people to think. I want to leave it on that note, honestly, because I want people to think about how you can do things outside the box. You know, what can you provide people? Like, give them a chance to do something either fun or fulfilling or whatever, while also providing that service in a way that maybe, you know, you can also get personally enriched from it. It's not like making money is not an inherently evil thing, and if you view it that way, then you're never going to make it because you're going to view it as the enemy. You can't view money as the enemy. Money shouldn't be the end all be all, but it, you know, it's a means to an end.
When you have your studio, like the big studio, I want to come back to that, man.
Hell yeah, man. Sounds like a plan. Manny, thank you so much for coming on, dude.
Man. Yeah.
This is a lot of fun, and we are out.